Hey everybody, Steven here, and for today's video, I'm going to talk about something that I've been focusing a lot more on these last handful of years with not only my own clients and myself personally, but kind of just talking with other trainers or other people about, which is posterior cervical compression, which is just a fancy way for saying that in a movement, you're railing your head back under load. Easy way to look at that is we'll look at like a Romanian deadlift or a deadlift, and somebody looks like this in that position. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do that. You just saw me do it, right? And in that position, I'm not under load, meaning I don't have any weight. So that's not something that I am advocating that you don't do, right? I always think of Ido's, there is no wrong movement, just movement, right? It's Ido Portal's quote on that. So looking at that, yeah, I absolutely can do that. If I'm doing a squat, I absolutely can do this, right? Or I can do the opposite. I can tuck a punch. I can have kyphosis or lordosis. I can have these things in position. The big thing that for me is a factor that separates this away is, are you under load? Meaning, do you have weight? If you have weight on your back or you're holding weight, that then changes it. Because under that load, you're putting force on top of those joints, that connective tissue, and that's where we can run into trouble, right? We can throw out our backs, we can herniate discs, all these other things, especially when you're dealing with a much heavier load that you would particularly pick up or squat or whatever it may be on a daily basis. So for this, I got a couple things that we're going to look at here with the tools to kind of mimic and show you a movement that you may do and what we're actually looking for. One of the big things that we talk about is neutral lines, okay? I want everything kind of stacked. Now with this, this comes out of DNS, Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization. I encourage everybody to look up their stuff, really good. It's all developmental kinesiology. Grip Approach by Benjamin Fergus, which is Global Rehabilitation Injury Prevention. I love his system. To me, it's a more condensed grip approach or DNS modality. Really quick testing system. It's still built off developmental kinesiology. There's other modalities that he's kind of put in there. I just really like Grip Approach, but they're very similar in certain aspects. But both of these we're looking at, if I'm in a hinged position, is my neck stacked, or am I too tucked, or am I railing too far back? Most people I see here, especially for something like a Romanian deadlift, right? They're holding on to a bar and they're going like this. That feels uncomfortable. I think that comes out of the old cueing of like, keep your head up, because what people were doing before, especially with like a back squat, is they'd come down and they'd let that head drift and then this roll over the top. And now it's just ingrained in people. What we want is neutral. Now, with that, you do have a range. So what I'm saying is you don't have to be 100% perfect. You have that exact alignment, everything is cued exact. I have a little bit of leeway with this where I can be. My biggest concern is that we're not here, which is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing it out of a lot of just people that go to the gym, but I'm seeing a lot of other trainers just cue this, which is concerning for me because they're putting them under load. This person's paying them to make sure that they're doing these things safely, correctly, and they're just throwing weight on there and they're just chasing the end result, which I get. The thing that I always say is stop trying to be fuckable, start trying to be functional, right? With that, we want to worry about the function, the long-term aspect of your health and your fitness versus the short 6-month stint that you're wanting to do where you want to get in visually great shape, right? And I do get that there's a correlation between visually looking like you're in great shape and being in shape, but that only goes so far, and then you can differentiate those two things. So with this, I'm here. The biggest thing that I tell people is pretend that I have a rod here, right? We're stacked, and I'm close to this. I might not necessarily have to be pressed up, because one of the things that you'll get if I'm completely pressed back and you have a lack of thoracic spine mobility, upper back mobility, is that you're gonna pull your ribs up. And now I have this curvature in my lower back here. Now I'm putting too much pressure on that, right? But as I'm here, if I'm pretty close to this, right, it's a good indicator as I bow forward that I'm pretty good. Because if I try to pull my head back, I lose contact on the rest of my back with this. That's one easy way to do that. I've also seen it where we put hand here and we bow, and it's just some type of neurological feedback that we're wanting to get. I personally like to do prisoner good mornings with this, where we'll interlock our hands, we'll put them at the base of the skull here. I'll get set up so my feet are directly underneath my pelvis, and as I bow forward, this is something that I can cue my head against. If I tilt my head back, I feel it, right? I feel this pull different than if I was here and it was a good light pull. I can load my shoulders down, meaning my shoulders aren't up here like this. I have good space, and then I can come back up. I like that. We do that as part of the warm-up with my clients. Any type of input, if you have somebody that is external to you that they can cue that, you can visually see, right? What I don't want you to do is you're in a mirror with a bunch of weight and like looking over. You're underloading, you're turning your head too much, right? Especially for those that are deadlifting and squat lifting a lot of weight. So that's another one. Looking at videotaping yourself is a good way. You'll do a handful of reps and then you can have that if you don't have anybody there. If you're a trainer, you're external to the person, you can come over there and do these little tweaks and get them relatively close to neutral. Like I said, we're not aiming for perfection here, right? We're aiming for this spectrum where I'm not railing my head back and I'm not completely tucking my chin, right? So if I'm here in a deadlift, my shoulders are loaded down, I'm pretty neutral with my cervical spine. I'm not here, and I'm not here, right here. As you do this more, what you'll start to do is neurologically map out what neutral is. So if you deviate away from that, you're like, okay, I can feel it. The second I pull here, you feel that tension in the levators, the SCM, the scalene, all this musculature on the front of your neck, you're feeling it. It's stretched out. Everything in the back here is compressed. And like we've talked about under load, I mean, that's way too much pressure on the disc and the connective tissue back there, okay? We're also fighting the lines of gravity with this, right? The weight is pulling me down and I'm literally pulling my head back against that. So, like I said, don't aim for perfection with this. If you have somebody external to you that can help cue this up for you and kind of get you close, awesome. If not, film yourself, come back like, and over time what you'll do is you'll map out where you need to be in order to be relatively neutral. Like I said, don't worry about it being 100% spot on. We do have a spectrum with this. We have a range that we get to work with. The big thing is those extremes that we start to go to are gonna have an effect. Now, if you notice as you start to do this, we're having difficulty with certain areas. One of the things that I see with my clients is as we get them here and I start to kind of cue their shoulders down and I'm like, all right, your head's like this, tuck your chin. So they're like this and we get them to tuck a little bit and they go like this and they round their back. We have thoracic spine mobility issues, right? So the thoracic spine is really tight. The muscles around it are really tight. So we'll do some thoracic spine openers and I'll link to some of these videos that I've done for that. We'll work on opening this up and I do it as a combo. Meaning, we're gonna do the deadlifts, we look at the corrections that we wanna make. If I already know that that's an issue with the client, we do some warm-up stuff to warm up the thoracic spine. We're doing reaches, we're doing a bunch of different cat-cow, all these different things. And then I integrate it into the lifting. I think it's important that as you lift, you do that corrective integration. You don't want to be in corrective purgatory where you're always doing correctives. That's not going to get you anywhere. You want to do some strength training, right? So with this, we'll do the strength training, and then for their break, we're doing thoracic spine mobility drills. Not the whole session. We do it for about 3 to 6 rounds of whatever it may be, and then we kind of chill out, and then we move to some other things. Dead hangs, pec stretch, some other things that feed into that as well. I like that approach just because if you're looking at mobility, right, it's the active range of motion that you have on the joint versus flexibility where it's more passive range of motion. You're doing a movement that requires mobility of the thoracic spine. and then you're stretching that out. So you're doing an active and like a passive stretching, or maybe might even be active stretching if you're doing like functional range conditioning or something like that. But we do the combo, and we always come back to the lift because you're reinforcing the fact that this is necessary for your body to have, okay? So we will see that. We'll see some thoracic spine and mobility issues. With this, just starting to be conscious of where's my head in these positions. See people do push-ups, even push-ups, and their chin is way tucked. It's putting way too much strain on my neck, okay? And it's not that right there is going to hurt you. It's over time, and you're also just opening yourself up to the possibility of an acute injury, but over time it's creating a ton of strain. I think of it as like long-term whiplash almost, right? At a micro level, you're just straining this over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then 5, 10, 15 years down the road, now we have some neck issues going on. And I wish I would have known this a decade ago when I was doing all of my heavy lifting, because then I'll find I have issues with my neck that if I'm not paying very, very close attention to this stuff and I'm doing heavy lifting, it can become an issue. I'm hyper aware of it now, right? So give that a try. Let me know if you have any questions, if there's anything that is unclear with this, and then I can always answer that via another video or just in the comment section. Looking at push-ups, can we find neutral? Looking at, even if I have here, like, and I'm gonna squat and I come down, if I can keep this here versus here, right? I think the difference with that is gonna be if you're powerlifting. They do a neck up, but those guys are so mobile, a lot of times they're in that safe range. The only time I see it being different is usually when they're in a snatch and they're not all the way at the bottom of the position. I don't do powerlifting personally, dislocated both shoulders, so if you want more info on that, you're gonna have to seek somebody else out. Like Mark Ripito does, I think he does, obviously a lot of the strength training stuff, but I think he's got a couple videos, or not a couple, he's got a good amount of videos on where to look at the positions when you're doing powerlifting stuff. Any Olympic lifting as well, you're looking at that stuff, that is different. Like I said, for me, it's all load dependent, but if you guys like the video, hit the like button for me. Hopefully this is providing value for you guys, and if it is, I'd like you to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be pumping out more videos here. I got the functional range conditioning certification next week. I'm excited about that, and then I'll be doing a lot of videos on that as well. So this one I've had on the back burner for quite some time now, just because I'm constantly seeing it now with a lot of people, and at the end of the day, I just don't want people to get hurt. That's, as a trainer, and if you are a personal trainer, that's our job, is to make sure that these people are doing these movements safely and effectively, so that when they're not at the gym and they don't have somebody watching them, they're not going to hurt themselves, right? So, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching. Check back soon for more videos. Like I said, I'll be doing the FRC here next week, so I will have a lot more content coming out in regards to that as well. Very excited about that, so check back soon.